Hi there, my name is Tony Ritchie, World's Okayest Medic, and I'm here to talk about medications and how genetics affects whether medications work or not. And I hope to share this with you. I think you'll find it very interesting and helpful in the future, and in particular, your patients will benefit from this. Just to rewind a little bit, the story came across to myself and my colleagues about how one of their engineers had broken his leg, and they were treating him with morphine. Morphine was the primary pain medication opiate we gave throughout the 90s, and it's very effective, but it had some effects that made it less than ideal in certain circumstances, so it was replaced later with fentanyl. But getting back to the point, apparently the fire engineer, the guy who broke his leg, was not responding to the morphine, and everyone's kind of starting to doubt him. I mean, in EMS, we tend to already be twisted, and we look at things through the sort of eyes that ordinary people don't. This also leads us to being skeptical when people say something and what they say doesn't line up with what we expect. And this could become our blind spot. This is most common in my experience with people who work with kind of just the lowest end of the human chain, however you want to describe them, dirtbags, drug users, whatever. No one will say this in public, but you ask anyone who works in an emergency department or pre-hospital and they'll be upfront with you. Sorry, this isn't PC, it's reality. So this guy's in misery. I mean, he's hurting. A broken leg is no joke. I believe he had broken his femur. Now he's being doubted. So this would have been a very stressful scene for everyone, but ultimately the most stressful for this guy who's hurting. So the reason this came to be news for us was that somehow the medication, the morphine, had been taken from the vial and replaced with saline, and it was done through a method none of us recognized at the time, even though we knew about the spinning caps. Spinning caps are a tamper-resistant seal that you pop off a vial, and they're designed to be removed easily and show the integrity of a medication in one particular way that I was not aware of, and many of my colleagues have not been aware of, and that is, it has to spin. Someone could remove the cap and then put a spot of crazy glue on it after they took out the medication, replaced it with something else, put the cap back on, and now it looks normal, but it doesn't spin. So this event brought me back to a book I had read. It was titled SEAL Team 6, Memoirs of an Elite Navy SEAL Sniper, written by SEAL Howard Wasden. He had been shot while operating in Somalia during the whole Black Hawk Down thing, and had his tibia shattered. This isn't an actual x-ray of his tibia, but it's the sort of injury you would get from a high velocity impact, something that could occur if a rifle round punched through your leg. In my experience, the tibia is the most excruciating bone to break. It's a major, thick, weight-bearing bone, and wow, other than for burns, I've never had to give so much pain medication as I have for broken tibia. The SEAL was put on board a medevac, and en route to where he was going, he describes being in just white-hot pain. By white-hot, I mean someone who's in so much pain you could see because they are just sweating, pale, teeth gritted, and he asked the nurse for more medicine. The nurse looked at his chart and saw that he had been given 2 injections of morphine, and she said, "You've already had 2 morphines, you shouldn't feel anything by now," and left him. Fortunately, a physician came by and saw what sort of distress he was in, and he asked the nurse about the pain medication, and she told him the same thing, and he said, well, he must be one of those non-responders. Apparently 1% of people don't respond to morphine. So they gave him Demerol instead. And that worked like a charm, really helped the guy tremendously. So with this experience in mind, I was cued in that there's something to this. But the term hadn't been labeled yet, at least I hadn't heard it. pharmacogenetics or pharmacogenomics. Going back to the story and closing it out on this seal, the sort of contraption he had to wear for months after the surgery to save his leg probably looks something like this. They literally just bolt everything together and hope it all heals. And knowing now that he was a non-responder to morphine gave a heads up to clinicians that morphine was not going to be effective, do something else. And this was where this video kind of comes into what can you use this information for. I got called out to a male with severe back pain, and after having experienced horrific back injuries and surgery myself, I never underestimate just how bad that is. And he was hurting. It was very obvious. So I gave him fentanyl. Fentanyl is an amazing medication. It gets a lot of rap in the news, and in fact the last 3 patients I gave it to, as soon as I mentioned the words fentanyl, they freaked out. I'm like, no. I said, fentanyl isn't dangerous because it's intrinsically bad. It's just that it's so powerful that if you take even a little bit too much, like we're talking like touching a Q-tip into talcum powder amount, it'll kill you. Anyways, I gave this patient fentanyl. It didn't work. It didn't look like he was touching him. And by that, I mean, when I asked him how his pain was, he said it was still just as bad. When I looked at him, he looked like he was hurting just as much. Whenever you're assessing pain, we use a scale as something you may have heard of, 0 to 10, 10 being the worst pain you ever had in your life, 0 being nothing. You ask someone, what's your pain like? And this guy had 10 on 10 pain. When I looked at him, he looked like he was 10 on 10. There are other people who will like totally ham it up and they will say, oh my God, I have 10 on 10. No, it's a 12 on 10 pain. And they're just like, and they totally bullshitting you. And so you kind of can objectively document that as the patient states it's 12 on 10, but they appear to be at about a 1 on 10 distress level. This is a little something you learn over time, what real pain looks like. So this guy was in real pain. And it sucked. Brought him to the hospital. As soon as we got into the hospital, I told the nurse what I'd given him and that he needed something for the pain, so she immediately went and got Dilaudid. Now, whereas fentanyl is given in micrograms or millionths of a gram, Dilaudid is given, as you can see, in milligram doses, typically 1 to 4 milligrams. She gave him Dilaudid and wham, really helped his pain. This was really good to see. The crazy thing, and I couldn't have made this up, I wouldn't have thought about it, it just happened, is I was assigned a patient to transfer out of this hospital and take him to the VA. He was a vet, and it was for back pain. So I went to the room where he was in the emergency department. It was bed 11, I think, and it was a larger guy, probably 230-pound male. He was hurting. He was really hurting. What had he received in the emergency department? Dilaudid. Apparently it had not worked at all. Again, having experienced severe back pain and knowing that the trip would involve jostling, bumping, the sway of turns in the ambulance and so on, I just did not want to leave with this guy on a 35-40 minute trip and know he was going to be hurting all the way. So I turned around and gave him fentanyl. The fentanyl worked on him. It worked fantastically. So he was happy, I was happy, we were all happy, and the trip went by in the greatest comfort that could be arranged. A little side note, I know that EMS and paramedics is all about saving lives and all the drama crap, but we rarely save lives. Like, we actually rarely save a life. The vast majority of patients could just drive themselves to the ER or Google first aid and do just fine. But one thing where I truly feel a gift is given to me as a paramedic is the ability to take away someone's pain. And when they're in severe pain, whether it's from a broken bone, burn, kidney stones, pancreatitis, gallstones, whatever, the fact that I have opioids that can work is just, it just makes my job worth it. So getting down to the point of this video, if you're giving pain medicines to a patient, I encourage you to think, what is the response? We all generally learn how to tell people who are hamming it up and can discern that. And personally, I don't really care. If someone acts enough to get a Hollywood award, they get pain medication. Doesn't cost me anything. We don't even carry enough to kill them, and I'll give it to them. But say you have someone that it's like, wow, they look like they're in pain and they're not responding. Keep in mind it might be genetic, and this is where you can make a difference as a paramedic. When you bring that patient into a hospital, you can say to the nurse or whoever you're turning it over to is that, hey, this guy might be a non-responder. They really do look miserable. You guys, obviously hospitals have a lot more pain medications options than an ambulance has. Maybe give them something else. So I pulled up just a couple of papers, and you can see it. One of the goals of pharmacogenetics is to figure out what medicine works best for your genetic profile. And this isn't just pain medication. This has to do with medications for blood pressure, cholesterol, kidneys, lots of stuff. I foresee a day in the future that we will have genetic typing as part of your medical background. And if you do have an issue with blood sugar control, antibiotics, whatever, they can look at your genetic profile and say, wow, this is something. People have big differences to pain. You can see this is about anesthesia and redheads, in particular females. This was really scary. I think I was spending way too long one time looking at surgical nightmares, probably as I was approaching one of my own surgeries and thinking, oh my God, what if I wake up during surgery? I'll be paralyzed. They will not even know that I'm conscious and still be hacking and burning me and just shoot me. So this is a real thing. It's very, very low frequency, but apparently it happens quite a bit more often in redheads. And I do think many, if not most, anesthesiologists are aware of this phenomenon. Here's a little bit again more on the top about the field of research, talking about what it covers, so on. Apparently there's a subgroup of people that actually respond to Narcan, naloxone. Narcan stands for narcotic antagonist. Apparently Narcan can serve as a narcotic or a narcotic agonist. Go figure. So I just want to thank you for watching this, opening your mind as mine was open to the individuality of people and how much this extends to the way we respond to medicines. Keep an open mind, and if you have someone who's not responding or acting different, it may not be faking. There's a very good chance it's because of their genes, something they have no control over. Thanks again for watching. If you click like. Better yet, say you love it. Comments are welcome. As you probably know, comments are what make things grow, and I would like these videos to get out to more people, because come to think of it, this isn't just for the patient you're treating, but if you have a particular weirdness in terms of how you respond to medication, it's handy for you to know and be able to give a heads up to the medic or EMT or nurse that's treating you, because there's a really good chance, unless they watch this video, they won't know. Thanks.